All right, Cradle fans, you've waited long enough. No more bullshit. Soulsmith is coming out 4 years ago. The Soulsmithing YouTube video comes out now, and it's going to be a good one. We're going to talk about what makes a good soulsmith, what a soulsmith is, what a soulsmith does, what a soulsmith can become. We're going to talk about some of the cool items in the world that have been made by soulsmiths. We're going to talk about how soulsmithing has changed the story of Linden and Friends. How in each of the books, soulsmithing played a pretty important part. And then I'm going to get into some theories. Not many, but some forward-thinking, how will soulsmithing be in the upcoming books? And that's the video. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. I'm sorry I've been out for so long. All right, let's get going. You might notice this looks different than usual. Well, it's because I'm using a different tool now, because my other tool is the reason you haven't gotten a video in the last 2 weeks. It keeps failing on me. So we're moving beyond that, and we're moving into the art of soulsmithing. Whoops. Wow. Great start. All right. So the soulsmith. This first excerpt comes from one of the second page of the first book. So right away, we learn about soulsmithing. And it's an ambition of Linden's to more than anything follow in his mother's footsteps as a soulsmith to create wondrous and magical items from Madra, molding the stuff of spirits and remnants. So at its core, that is what a soulsmith is. They are someone who creates magical items from spiritual resources, primarily remnants. All right, so what are the requirements of a quality soulsmith? Well, the first thing is when you're soulsmithing, you are combining elements together, and you need your own Madra to bind them together, because you have will over your own Madra. You have will over your own forged constructs, over your own forged techniques. And if you don't have a Madra aspect that's compatible with many other types, you're extremely limited as a soulsmith, which is why Fisher-Geshe and Linden are both extremely good soulsmiths. Fisher-Geshe is actually arguably has a better aspect than Linden, because her Madra aspect is mostly pure, but it has a binding effect to it. It has a gravitational effect. It binds things together. So hers is even better than Linden's because hers doesn't water down the other aspects. Linden using pure Madra, it waters everything down. Now, there's some potential theoretical spoilery stuff that might come into play later if he's able to utilize hunger Madra as a binding force for tools instead of pure Madra. I don't know if that's possible yet, but I'm pretty sure it's possible. So stay tuned. So Linden and Fisher-Geshe make great soulsmiths because of their Madra aspect is compatible with many others. The next is a skill for forging. This is not really a big deal outside of the Sacred Valley, but in the first book, you have to be a forger if you're ever going to be a soulsmith, which is why Linden wants to be a forger. He wants the badge with a hammer on it, just like his mother, so he can follow in her footsteps. Outside of Sacred Valley, where everyone learns a forging technique, if there's one compatible with their path, you have to be really good at forging. You have to have really strong willpower, really a lot of patience, and eventually the knowledge of Madra aspects and what can be balanced together. This is why Dross ends up being super helpful, because he's able to take in the knowledge of Madra aspects and help Linden figure out patterns. Before, Linden would have to follow the 100-year experience of Fisher-Geshe, and she's not always super forthcoming with her information, so he was at her mercy. All right, moving on to the tools of a soulsmith. First and foremost, you need a drudge. A drudge is All the tools a soulsmith requires rolled into one. They can measure Madra output, determine its aspects, analyze the parts of a remnant, and even help separate that remnant into its components with minimal loss. Soulsmithing primarily revolves around deconstructing and reconstructing remnants to take advantage of their unique properties. And it's super hard to do without a drudge. Now, originally, I think the story was going to include Linden building a drudge, but I think to conserve time and to advance the plot and to make room for more interesting things, Dross is becoming that drudge, because as a presence, he will have all the components and capabilities of a drudge. This is my thought. Now, maybe Will always intended Dross to become a drudge, and so Linden would be building his drudge by just feeding dream scales and information to Dross. I don't know. But anyway, that's Linden's drudge. Then they need gold steel tools to handle Madra. Gold steel has a unique property in that it doesn't interact with the Madra in a sense. So you can cut through it cleanly without screwing with the aspect, and it's perfect for soulsmithing. Then you need remnant parts, because what are you going to do if you don't have any spiritual components? Then you're a blacksmith, and that's no fun. So you need remnant parts, you need spiritual components, and mainly need bindings. Bindings are the bread and butter of a soulsmith. You get them from remnants, and a binding is basically like a neural pathway, or like if a sacred artist uses a technique over and over and over again, that technique, that pattern gets calcified in their soul, in their spirit, and it allows them to use the technique more efficiently, with more power, quicker. It's just like forming a habit in your brain. Practice and repetition builds strong neural pathways. Same thing in the sacred arts. It builds a binding. And when you die, that binding can be harvested from your remnant, which is why for the jade cycling technique of Heaven and Earth Purification Wheel, Ethan says don't tell anyone about it, because this is your core cycling technique, and if you tell people about it, they will kill you, and they will harvest the binding from your remnant and make a new parasite ring. So next, they need an imagination, because just like in the real world, you can learn how to build things, but if you don't have an idea of what to build, you're not going to build anything. So you need an imagination, which Linden has in spades, due to almost 2 decades worth of not being strong enough to survive, and he had to learn to be creative and resourceful and use his surroundings to benefit him. Next, Soulfire. Soulfire is a next level component that purifies the creation and makes it stronger. Most Lord level and even some gold level soulsmith items have been tempered in Soulfire. We see the resonance cannons that Fisher Geshe builds. They're tempered in Ethan's Soulfire. When Ethan fights Jai Daisho in Serpent's Grave, Jai Daisho comments on how almost every Lord's weapon will be tempered in Soulfire, because a Lord can use Soulfire, and they're not going to fight with a weapon that isn't prepared to conduct Madra efficiently. And then, so moving on from Soulfire, the Way. We know that the Way is used. I put a question mark here because we haven't seen it used before, but we know that it's used because Linden analyzes the speaker box that he has in Uncrowned, and there's a third component that he can't quite figure out. He sees how everything else is bound together, but he can't see everything because he doesn't have he's not strong enough to sense the Way. So let's move on to some notable soulsmith creations. The first and most prominent in the series is Dross. He's a baby presence. He's unique in the sense that I'm not sure, we don't know this yet, but I'm going to assume that a presence has never been built on Cradle before, or the foundation for a presence has never been built on Cradle before. I don't know. Cradle's been around a long time, so that's kind of probably a dumb thing to say from a statistical standpoint, but from a from like a plot standpoint, I'm just gonna say he's super, super unique. Then we have Sue. I don't remember what Sue's real name is. It's like Eclipse, something of the Soul Seeker. Cool name. It's a bow named Sue, and Sue was crafted from the remnant of a sage dragon, I think. I'm not sure if it was by Malice. I think it was created by Malice, but it was her weapon. Man, if that was created by Malice, that's impressive because she used it from low gold to Arklord. Yeah, so it's probably not crafted by her. Then we have more things that were crafted by Malice. The Books of the Seven Pages, which are path manuals that act as all sorts of stuff. We don't know too much about them other than you can emit techniques from them, you can learn techniques from them, and they can contain soul fire. Yeah, that's basically what we know. Then, of course, the Ancestor Spear played a really big role in the storyline of Book 2 and Book 3 and the beginning part of Book 4, because it's the first weapon or plot point that has to do with hunger aura, or hunger madra. It has a hunger binding built into it, and the search for this spear is what leads Linden to the top of the Transcendent Ruins, where he gets hunger bindings, which leads to him to building his munch arm or his hunger arm. It's another thing I wanted to call out, that a soulsmith can build pretty much anything. They can build prosthetic limbs, weapons, armor, utility items. Even in Sacred Valley, a jade soulsmith could build an invisible sentinel that could protect you. That's impressive. And then we have the Dread Gods. It is implied that they are a creation of soulsmiths. After reading the path manual, not the path manual, but the soulsmith manual on the hunger binding, Linden reads through it, and we learn about Subject 1. We learn about dread beasts and how they, pervert their auras, and they take on different auras, and then their souls get screwed up. And we know that dread gods are an evolution, like the end level evolution of a dread beast. And we know dread beasts were a soulsmith creation. Take that down the road of logic far enough, and you have dread gods. So, oops, soulsmith made dread gods. I think it was Osriel. Moving on. All right, Lindens Journey. This will kind of paint the picture of what Linden has done as a soulsmith and where he's going as a soulsmith. That's the whole point of this, is to get to the juice of where is he going as a soulsmith. All right, so in Unsouled, he basically works with his mother. He learns the basics, uses his pure madra to fix scripts, power scripts, things like that. One might argue that he created some sort of a soulsmith item using the jar, some scripts and the remnants, because he did use his madra to activate a binding or whatever, or a script. You could say that was one of his first creations in the story. And then we see that you can utilize a remnant in a circle, like in a soulsmith, circle, to create an effect on the world. So we saw soulsmiths. The Lee soulsmiths used ancient knowledge to form a rift in the way using remnants that could manipulate space. That's really cool. We haven't seen that done at any other point in the story, which is interesting because we've seen much more powerful soulsmiths, but are they more advanced? We don't know. And then in the book Soulsmith, Linden begins his tutelage under Fisher Gesha. This is where, if you really want to, dive deep, you can get some interesting metaphors from Fisher Gesha on what bindings are, on what launcher constructs are, on the do's and don'ts of trying to progress within the soulsmithing profession. But Linden, he cheats at everything. He skips steps. He doesn't have time. Fate is on his side. So I didn't include that here because soulsmithing, while interesting, is a tool of Linden's to help his team progress. So then in Black Flame, there wasn't too much. He used some of his soulsmithing skills to, I guess, work on the constructs at the end of the trial, or to figure out what was going on with the constructs during the Black Flame trials. But he was too busy advancing. In Skysworn, though, actually, I'm going to back up to Black Flame because the whole trials were a construct of Soulsmith. Soulsmiths built the Black Flame trials, which is awesome. There's a control room and everything. I mean, the scale that we see Soulsmiths creating crap is pretty ridiculous. Like moving on to Skysworn, the Sky City was a product of a Soulsmith. We know that 1,000 Mile Clouds are basic Soulsmith constructs, and these skyships we know in Uncrowned are products of Soulsmiths because Reagan Shen gives one to Ethan, and he says my best Soulsmiths worked on this. So in Skysworn, Linden assisted Geshe in crafting tools for a duel against Jai Long. He crafted his hunger arm with Geshe's guidance. This is either the first observance of a hunger ruler technique or just basic authority over hunger. Because Linden resonates, his reason for practicing the sacred arts resonates so closely with a hunger for advancement that he was able to dominate using his will or some latent authority over that arm and to bind it to himself. And then he got his Skysworn armor and studied it and made plans for improving it. Moving on to Ghostwater, which was the whole book was him advancing and using soulsmithing skills, mainly around enhancing dross, building a construct, using his knowledge of constructs to keep a construct alive, to merge it with other constructs, to give it spiritual properties. And he didn't really know what he was doing, but he winged it and it worked out because plot armor and awesome. So now we have dross. He also repaired his damaged hunger binding using spare parts. And outside of Ghostwater, we see Fisher Geshe craft the first resonance cannon. You can't see it because of my fat face. The first resonance cannon was created and I don't know if it was instrumental in destroying Longhook, but it was instrumental in Ethan being able to corner Longhook and take him out by himself. All right, moving on to Underlord. Another book pretty chock full of soulsmithing, mainly because we see dross turn into a drudge plus simulation tool. We learn that you can combine soulsmithing skills with refiner skills to create something like the Heavens Drop. And Linden built his own resonance cannons. He modified his armor greatly. He crafted bombs, which we never saw. And in the end, he stole the Satian armor for study. In Uncrowned, there wasn't that much because there was so much going on and we didn't get to see the in-betweens. But he overburdens his speaking box, but he's able to use his pure Madra and his general knowledge of constructs to keep it going. He notices, I already called this out, where he notices that soulsmithing can include some ephemeral other component, which is the way. In the first trial, he destroys a bunch of constructs using his hunger arm and his knowledge of soulsmithing. He builds himself a nice little shield, and we learn at the end of the book that a monarch with enough skill can forge an Abadan level artifact. We learned that Osriel built Penance, and Penance is powerful enough to kill anyone, which, based on some words of will, means it's like an Abadan type of just restructuring of the fabric of reality. Monarchs typically don't fight each other because they stalemate, and all the monarchs are looking for Abadan level artifacts because then they can just wipe the other one out by just changing the fabric of reality. So monarchs with enough knowledge can do that thanks to Osriel. There's some other stuff in book 7, but I really want to, this video is already getting long. I want to look forward to book 8. Book 8 is, as far as I know, still titled Wintersteel. And we know that Wintersteel is, actually we don't know what Wintersteel is, but we can assume that Wintersteel is a type of metal used to contain ice techniques, and it is a patented thing, a patented type of metal or whatever from the Winter Sage, or the Frozen Blade, the Sage of the Frozen Blade, whatever. Linden has never made a weapon before. Not like a true weapon. Like the axe he had, with the bindings that it had, holy crap, like that's super powerful. We have not yet seen that level of soulsmithing. Linden hasn't ever made anything like that, at least to our knowledge. Not something permanent that can be reused. Yaren's sword and the sister sword that the Winter Sage has were crafted by her. And we have a book called Wintersteel. And we have a Winter Sage that wants to tutor Yaren. And we have a monarch that really wants a presence and just grabbed our main character by the throat. That's a lot of clues that there's going to be some like super heavy soulsmithing coming up. Whether it be Linden learning how to make a weapon for the team, whether Linden is trying to make a presence for Northstrider, there's a lot coming. And then we just learned about icons. If our cast moves to Overlord, they might have the skills to properly sense the way and make use of icons. But we might see the Sage utilizing an icon to forge, ice into metal. Maybe using the icon of ice can permanently enable metal to emit a technique of some sort. I don't know. We'll have to see. And then I'm really looking forward to seeing someone build a void key, because I'm interested. I'm interested in more hunger weapons, which is why I think there's going to be a weapon building montage in book 8, because eventually Linden's going to have to build hunger weapons. I think hunger weapons are going to be a key component of surviving the labyrinth. And Linden, I think, is going to build constructs for Dross to control, to be like a puppet master. I think that would be cool. I would like to see other pocket worlds getting made, and I'm pretty sure we'll see that, because the primary antagonist monarch holds people in other dimensional spaces, holds his enemies. His whole path is around interdimensional spaces, little pocket worlds. So I'm pretty sure we'll see that. And then I think it would be cool if we got to see a battle planet built, like a whole planet built around fighting the Roshir or whatever. Probably won't happen in Cradle, because Cradle is a book about the iteration of Cradle. And if someone's building a battle planet, they're leaving Cradle. And that's a different series. So this is where I'm at with soulsmithing. Upcoming videos. I think I'm going to make a video about theories around icons and authority. They've been discussed ad nauseum in the community, but there's a couple angles that I don't know if they've been discussed, and I really want to discuss them. I actually laid out all the research and groundwork months and months ago. And then I want to build a series of videos that are like short summaries of each book so that every time a new book comes out, we can come back, watch these videos, get recapped, get the main thing. I've been asked to make those a couple times, so I think I might. Yeah, so that's what's going on. Thanks for being patient with this video. Let me know what you thought.